Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of US 1-cent coins, commonly known as pennies. You'd be surprised how valuable some of these little coins can be. From historic moments to rare errors, these pennies hold fascinating stories and can be worth a lot more than just 1 cent. In this video, we'll be counting down the top 7 most valuable US 1-cent coins and exploring their history, unique features, and current market value. Let's get started. 1981 cent. The 1980 US penny is part of the famous Lincoln cent series. First introduced in 1909, this coin series honors the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. By 1980, the penny had already undergone several design changes and material adjustments. In fact, if you take a close look, you'll notice that the 1980 penny still features the same obverse front design Lincoln's profile created by sculptor Victor D. On the reverse, we've got the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This reverse design would last until 2008. When it was replaced with the Union Shield design in 2010. Now let's talk about what this coin is made of. In 1980, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This composition was used from 1962 until 1982, when the rising cost of copper forced the U.S. Mint to switch to a cheaper zinc core with just a thin copper coating. Because of the high copper content, a 1980 penny actually weighs 3.11 grams, which is a bit heavier than the modern pennies we use today. So what's the value of a 1980 penny? Well, as with any coin, it depends on its condition and rarity. Most 1980 pennies are still worth just 1 cent if they're in circulated condition, which means they've been used and show signs of wear. However, uncirculated coins or those in near perfect condition, what collectors call mint state ink, can be worth more. An uncirculated 1980 penny could be valued anywhere from 30 cents to $2 depending on its condition. And if you come across a penny that's graded MS65 or higher, it could even fetch $5 to $10. There are also some rarer varieties to look out for. For instance, pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint don't have a mint mark, while those from Denver will have a small D on the front. And keep an eye out for error coins like off-center strikes or double dies, as these can be worth a lot more. Now, here's the big question: should you clean your 1980 penny? The answer almost always is no. While it might be tempting to shine up an old penny to make it look new, cleaning a coin can actually decrease its value sometimes significantly. Collectors prefer coins in their original state, even if they're a bit dirty or tarnished. Cleaning can leave scratches or remove the coin's natural patina, which is considered part of its history and appeal. So if you've got a 1980 penny or any old coin that you think might be valuable, leave the cleaning supplies alone and take it to a professional for an evaluation instead. So the 1980 US penny is an iconic coin with a rich history. And while most of them aren't worth more than their face value, there are a few gems out there that could be worth more, especially if they're in mint condition or have errors. Next, 1975 1 cent. The 1975 Lincoln penny was minted during a time when the design hadn't changed much. It still features the familiar portrait of Lincoln on the obverse front side, which was designed by Victor David Brenner. The reverse back features the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959, replacing the original wheat ears that were on the back from 1909 to 1958. By 1975, pennies were still made of a copper alloy, consisting of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This composition remained unchanged until 1982, when the U.S. Mint switched to a copper-plated zinc core due to rising copper prices. Mint marks and production. Now let's talk about mint marks. The 1975 penny was minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If your penny has no mint mark, it was minted in Philadelphia. If there's a small D under the date, it was minted in Denver. If you see an S, it was minted in San Francisco. Philadelphia and Denver minted the 1975 Lincoln penny for circulation, while San Francisco primarily produced proof coins for collectors. Over 5 billion 1975 pennies were minted, with Philadelphia producing over 5.4 billion and Denver minting around 4.5 billion. San Francisco, however, produced only about 2.8 million proof coins. So while 1975 pennies are common, proof pennies from San Francisco are much scarcer. 1975 penny composition. As mentioned earlier, these pennies are made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Because of this, each penny from 1975 contains about 2.95 grams of copper. While the melt value of the copper may fluctuate based on market prices, it is generally more than the face value of the coin itself, making even circulated pennies technically worth more than 1 cent in copper content. However, it's important to note that melting pennies for their metal content is illegal in the United States, so these coins must remain intact. What is the 1975 penny worth today? Now, the big question: what is the 1975 penny worth today? For most circulated 1975 pennies, their value is close to face value, which is 1 cent. That's because they were minted in such huge quantities, making them easily available even today. However, certain factors can make your 1975 penny more valuable. Condition coins in uncirculated or near perfect condition, often graded as MS65 or higher, can be worth between $1 to $15 depending on their quality. Proof coins, if you have a proof penny from the San Francisco Mint marked with an S, it can be worth anywhere from $2 to $10 or more depending on the condition. Errors and varieties. Some 1975 pennies may have minting errors such as double die strikes, off-center strikes, or missing mint marks. These error coins can be worth significantly more, with prices ranging from $50 to $500 or more depending on the rarity and demand for the error. Interesting facts about the 1975 penny. In 1975, inflation was on the rise in the US, and many people were worried about the future of the economy. Despite this, the penny remained a key part of everyday transactions. Even though millions of pennies were minted in 1975, today people often overlook them, making it a fun and potentially valuable coin to collect. So whether you're a casual collector or just curious about the value of that 1975 penny you found in your pocket, it's always worth taking a closer look. 1974 1 cent. The 1974 1 cent coin, commonly referred to as the Lincoln penny, is a widely circulated coin in the United States. It features the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, designed by Victor D. Brenner, a design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. On the reverse, you'll see the iconic Lincoln Memorial design, which was in use from 1959 until 2008. Beneath the memorial, you'll spot the tiny but important FG initials of the designer, Frank Gasparro. The year 1974 was a significant period in U.S. history, both politically and economically. Amid the Watergate scandal and an energy crisis, the U.S. Mint produced billions of coins to meet the nation's demand for currency. One of the most interesting things about the 1974 penny is that it marks the final years of a high copper composition in the penny. Pennies from 1909 to 1982 were made mostly of copper, but rising material costs led to a major change in composition. By 1982, the penny was primarily made of zinc with only a thin copper coating. Now let's talk about the different versions of the 1974 penny, which are essential when determining their value. There are three main mints that produce the coin. 1974, no mint mark. These were produced in Philadelphia, and as the name suggests, they do not have a mint mark. 1974 D. These were minted in Denver, and you'll find a small D under the date. 1974 S. These were minted in San Francisco and carry the S mint mark. San Francisco also produced proof coins in 1974, which were sold to collectors and are known for their sharp, high-quality finish. Additionally, there's the experimental 1974 aluminum penny, which was never officially circulated. The U.S. Mint made about 1.5 million of these coins to explore alternative materials, but the idea was scrapped, and most of the aluminum pennies were destroyed. However, a few escaped into the public, making them extremely rare and valuable. Now, on to the question we all want to know: what's the value of a 1974 penny today? Circulated coins. Most 1974 pennies you come across in everyday pocket change have little more than face value. That's right, they're still just worth a cent due to the billions minted that year. However, they can be worth around $0.02 to $0.05 due to their copper content. Uncirculated coins, if you have an uncirculated or mint condition 1974 penny, it could be worth more. Depending on the grade, these can fetch anywhere from $0.50 to $2. Proof coins, proof versions, especially those from the San Francisco Mint, can be worth more, typically around $1 to $5 depending on the condition. 1974 aluminum penny. If you somehow have one of the elusive aluminum pennies, you might be sitting on a fortune. These can sell for upwards of $250,000 if authenticated, but the chances of finding one are incredibly slim. To determine the value of your 1974 penny, condition is key. Coins are graded on a scale from poor P1 to mint state MS70. Here's a quick breakdown. Circulated coins, these will show wear and tear. The more worn it is, the lower the grade. Uncirculated coins, these are in mint condition with no signs of wear. Look for a strong, bright finish. Proof coins, these have a shiny mirror-like finish and are struck with greater detail. If you have one, be sure to keep it protected to preserve its value. If you're unsure about your coin's grade, consider taking it to a professional grader, as even minor differences in condition can drastically change the value. 1982 1 cent. The history behind the 1982 penny. This was a significant year for the U.S. Mint because they made a major change to the composition of the penny. Before 1982, pennies were mostly made of copper minus 95% copper and 5% zinc. But rising copper prices pushed the cost of making a penny higher than its actual value. So the mint decided to switch to a cheaper composition, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1982, both copper and zinc pennies were produced. This means there are two different versions of the 1982 penny. And not just that, there are actually 7 different varieties due to the combination of mint marks, compositions, and size changes. So what are these varieties? Let's break it down quickly. 1982 copper large date, 1982 copper small date, 1982 zinc large date, 1982 zinc small date, 1982 D copper large date, 1982 D zinc large date, 1982 D zinc small date. You can tell the large date from the small date by looking at the number, specifically the 2 in 1982. In the large date, it's thicker and more rounded, while the small date is slimmer. As for the D mint mark, that represents the Denver Mint, while pennies without a mint mark were made in Philadelphia. Now, here's how you can tell if you have a copper penny or a zinc penny. The easiest way is by weighing it. A copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams, while a zinc penny weighs around 2.5 grams. So if you have a scale, it's as simple as placing the coin on it. If you don't have a scale, try the sound test. Copper pennies tend to make a higher pitched ring when dropped, while zinc pennies sound duller. It's not as precise, but it can help. So let's get to the big question. What are these pennies worth? Well, most of the 1982 pennies you find in circulation are only worth their face value of 1 cent. However, there are a few exceptions. 1982 copper pennies, large and small date. These can be worth anywhere from 3 to 10 cents if they're in good condition due to their copper content. 1982 D zinc small date. This is a key coin for collectors. In uncirculated condition, it can be worth around $15 to $50 or more, depending on the grade. Error coins, there are some rare error coins, such as the 1982 D copper small date, which wasn't supposed to be minted. If you have one of these, it could be worth thousands of dollars. Always check for errors or unusual characteristics. If you think you've got a valuable penny, it's important to know its grade. Grading is based on the condition of the coin, how much wear and tear it shows. A mint state or uncirculated coin will be shiny with no signs of wear, while a heavily circulated coin will look dull and worn. To get an accurate assessment of your coin's value, consider having it professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. 1961 US 1 cent. The 1961 Lincoln cent is part of the long-running Lincoln penny series, which started in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This penny replaced the Indian head cent and features a portrait of Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. On the front or obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln's profile, which has remained largely unchanged since its introduction. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the date 1961, along with the mint mark, if any. If there's no mint mark, it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Pennies from Denver will have a small D under the date, and in 1961, there was no production in San Francisco. Turning the coin over, the reverse features the classic design known as the wheat penny reverse, showing 2 wheat stalks on each side of the words 1 cent. Above this, it reads United States of America, and at the top is e pluribus unum, meaning out of many. This wheat stalk design was used until 1958, after which it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design. However, many people still refer to these pennies as wheat pennies when discussing the earlier series. The 1961 Lincoln cent is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams. Pennies were primarily made from copper until 1982, when rising copper prices led to the shift to zinc with a copper plating. Since this 1961 penny is composed mostly of copper, its melt value has fluctuated with the price of copper. In 1961, over 1.7 billion pennies were minted between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, -1.7 billion. As a result, these coins are relatively common in circulated conditions. However, uncirculated or high-grade coins are more valuable. Let's break down the minting numbers. Philadelphia, over 753 million coins. Denver, about 1.7 billion coins. Now let's talk about value. In circulated condition, most 1961 pennies are only worth their face value 1 cent. But if you have a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, it can be worth a few dollars. A 1961 penny in MS65 condition, which is a top-grade mint state, can fetch between $10 and $20 or more, depending on demand. Coins with rare errors, such as double dies or off-center strikes, can be worth significantly more. One of the most sought-after types of errors is the double die. If you happen to find a 1961 penny with doubling on the date, motto, or other parts of the design, it could be worth hundreds of dollars. Here's a fun fact. Lincoln cents are the longest-running coin series in U.S. history, and it's amazing to think that a design introduced in 1909 is still going strong today. So there you have it, a full breakdown of the 1961 US 1 cent coin. While it may not be the rarest penny out there, it's still a valuable piece of history and a great addition to any collection. Be sure to check your change or old coin jars for one of these, especially in high grades or with any errors. 1981 US 1 cent. The 1981 US 1 cent coin, also known as a Lincoln cent, features one of the most iconic figures in American history, President Abraham Lincoln. The Lincoln cent series first started back in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1981, this coin had been in circulation for over 7 decades, with only a few modifications along the way. The obverse or front still showcased Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse back of the coin featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design that began in 1959. Now, what makes the 1981 penny particularly interesting is that it was one of the last years that pennies were primarily made of copper. Starting in 1982, the US Mint transitioned to a composition of 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper due to rising copper costs. So, if you have a 1981 penny, it's one of the last full copper pennies produced. Let's break down the technical specs of the 1981 US 1 cent coin. Diameter 19.05 mm, about the size of a dime. Weight 3.11 grams heavier than modern zinc pennies. Composition 95% copper and 5% zinc, making it heavier and slightly more valuable in terms of metal content compared to later pennies. Mint marks: the 1981 penny was minted at 3 locations. Philadelphia, no mint mark. Denver, mark D. San Francisco, mark S for proof coins. The S proof coins were only available in collector's sets and were not meant for circulation. Now let's talk numbers. The US Mint produced a massive number of pennies in 1981, as pennies are one of the most used coins in circulation. Philadelphia Mint, over 7.4 billion pennies were struck. Denver Mint, roughly 5.5 billion pennies were produced. San Francisco Mint proof, around 4 million proof coins were minted. While these numbers seem high, don't let that fool you. The condition and grade of your penny will determine its value. An average 1981 penny found in circulation is typically worth its face value, but in mint condition, it could be worth much more. Now let's get to the part you've all been waiting for: the value. The value of a 1981 penny largely depends on its condition or grade. Here's a quick breakdown. Circulated condition: most 1981 pennies in circulation are only worth their face value 1 cent. However, their copper content gives them a bit of a boost since copper itself has value. Uncirculated condition: if you have an uncirculated or mint condition penny, it could be worth anywhere from 10 to 30 cents. Not bad for a penny, right? Proof coins minted in San Francisco can fetch higher prices. A 1981 S proof coin can range from $1 to $3 depending on its condition. For collectors looking for high-grade coins, those pennies graded MS65 or higher mint state could be worth several dollars, especially if they have brilliant red coloring with no blemishes. Before we wrap up, here are some fun facts about the 1981 penny. This coin was part of the last full year of copper-dominant pennies. After 1981, the mint switched to zinc due to the rising cost of copper. A fascinating error to look out for is the double die error, where parts of the coin's design appear doubled. While rare, a 1981 penny with this error could be worth significantly more to collectors. And here's a quirky fact: if you melted down a 1981 penny, its copper would be worth more than 1 cent, but melting pennies is illegal in the US, so it's best to just keep them intact. 1979 US 1 cent. The 1979 US penny is part of the Lincoln Cent series, which has been in circulation since 1909. The Lincoln Cent was introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth and has become one of the most iconic and widely recognized coins in American history. The 1979 penny continues this tradition, featuring Lincoln's profile on the obverse or head side. The design on the obverse of the penny, created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, has remained largely unchanged for over a century. On the reverse side, the coin displays the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1979, the penny was still being struck in copper. However, in 1982, the composition changed to a zinc core with a copper coating due to the rising cost of copper. So a 1979 penny is one of the last fully copper coins. Now let's talk about the mint marks. The 1979 penny was produced at 3 mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an SEs. The Philadelphia Mint produced the most coins in 1979, so these are the most common. The Denver Mint produced fewer coins, but they are still widely available. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins, which were made specifically for collectors. These proof coins are typically much more valuable than regular circulation coins due to their higher quality and limited numbers. Let's get to what everyone wants to know: how much is a 1979 penny worth today? For most 1979 pennies, their value is close to face value, around 1 cent if they've been in circulation and show signs of wear. However, certain factors can increase their value significantly. Here's what to look for. Condition: coins in uncirculated or mint condition can be worth more. If you have a 1979 penny that looks as shiny as the day it was made, it could be worth around $0.30 to $1 or more. Proof coins, proof pennies from San Francisco with the S Mint mark, can be valued between $1 and $5 depending on their condition and demand. Certain errors like double die strikes or off-center minting can make a 1979 penny much more valuable to collectors. These can fetch prices ranging from $20 to several $100s depending on the rarity and type of error. Collecting 1979 pennies can be a rewarding hobby, and here are a few tips if you're looking to add them to your collection. Check your change even today. You might find a 1979 penny in circulation. Keep an eye out for those in better condition. Buy from reputable dealers. If you're looking to purchase proof or error coins, make sure you're buying from trusted sources. Invest in coin storage to preserve your coin's condition. Store them in protective cases or albums to prevent tarnishing and damage. 1962 1 cent. Here it is, the 1962 1 cent coin, also known as the Lincoln penny. This coin is a fascinating example of mid-20th century American currency. Let's break down its history, design, and value. First, a bit of background. The 1962 penny was minted during a period of economic stability in the United States. It's part of the series that began in 1909, commemorating Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday with the iconic Lincoln portrait on the obverse. This design, created by Victor David Brenner, has been a staple of American coinage for decades. On the front of the coin, we see the bust of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, the inscription "In God We Trust" arches over his head, while "Liberty" in the year 1962 are inscribed to the left and right of his bust, respectively. Turning the coin over, we see the reverse design featuring the Lincoln Memorial. The inscription 1 cent is prominently displayed at the bottom, and the words "United States of America" are inscribed above. This design by Frank Gasparo replaced the earlier wheat penny reverse in 1959. Now let's talk about value. In 1962, these pennies were made in large quantities with a total mintage of around 1.5 billion coins. This high mintage means that most 1962 pennies are not particularly rare. However, the condition of the coin greatly affects its value. Here's a quick guide to the value based on different grades. Circulated coins: if your 1962 penny is in average circulated condition, it's worth about 1 to 2 cents. Uncirculated coins that have never been used in everyday transactions and are in mint condition can fetch around 10 to 20 cents. High-grade proof: some 1962 pennies were struck as proof coins and can be worth more, typically ranging from a few dollars depending on their condition and certification. To determine the grade, you'll want to look for key details like the condition of Lincoln's portrait, the clarity of the inscriptions, and the overall cleanliness of the coin. Higher grade coins are rarer and more sought after by collectors. If you're interested in collecting 1962 pennies, here are a few tips. Check for errors. Some 1962 pennies have minor minting errors, which can be more valuable. Look for double dies or unusual variations. Preserve properly. Store your coins in a cool, dry place and use proper coin holders to avoid damage. Get expert opinions. If you think you have a rare or valuable coin, consider having it professionally graded. 1965 1 cent. The 1965 1 cent coin, also known as the Lincoln penny, was produced during a particularly interesting period in American coinage. As many of you might know, 1965 was a transitional year for U.S. currency. Let's dig into the history, design, and value of this particular coin. In the early 1960s, the United States faced a coin shortage crisis, which was driven by rising metal costs and a surge in demand. In response, the U.S. Mint decided to make some changes to the composition of its coins. For the 1 cent piece, this meant moving away from the traditional bronze alloy. Prior to 1965, the Lincoln penny was made from a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. However, due to the rising cost of copper, the mint transitioned to a new composition of 95% copper-plated zinc. This change was reflected in the 1965 penny, which featured a copper-plated zinc core. Visually, the 1965 penny looks very similar to its predecessors. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln's portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner, and the reverse displays the traditional wheat ears designed by the same artist. However, if you look closely, you'll notice a subtle difference in the composition and weight. The 1965 penny weighs about 2.5 grams, which is slightly less than the older bronze versions. Now let's talk about the value of the 1965 penny. Despite being a significant year in terms of coin composition changes, the 1965 1 cent coin is not particularly rare. In fact, millions were produced, making it relatively common in the market today. As of now, a 1965 penny in average circulated condition is worth just about 1 cent its face value. However, if you have an uncirculated or pristine example, it might fetch a premium of a few dollars. The high-grade specimens or those with unique errors can be worth more, but these are relatively rare. The 1965 penny is a fascinating piece of history, not just because of its change in composition, but also because it represents a pivotal moment in American coinage. Collectors often find value in the historical context, even if the coin itself isn't particularly rare. Indeed, understanding the historical context of a coin adds a layer of appreciation that goes beyond its face value. So next time you find a 1965 penny in your pocket change, you can appreciate the little piece of history it represents. 1992 1 cent. The 1992 1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln penny, is part of a long tradition of American coinage. Introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, this coin features the 16th President of the United States on the obverse and a depiction of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. However, the design did change over time. In 1959, the original design was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial reverse to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design remained unchanged until 2009, when the penny celebrated Lincoln's bicentennial with a series of new reverses. But in 1992, we're still looking at the classic Lincoln Memorial design. Now let's talk about mint marks. The 1992 penny was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint mark is absent, but Denver coins have a D mint mark and San Francisco coins have an S. The vast majority of 1992 pennies you'll encounter will be from the Denver Mint, so keep an eye out for those mint marks. One interesting fact is that 1992 saw a significant number of pennies being produced. In fact, the Denver Mint alone struck over 8 billion of these coins, so finding a 1992 penny in your change isn't too surprising. So what's the value of a 1992 penny? In general, circulated 1992 pennies are worth just 1 cent their face value. However, if you have a coin in mint condition, especially if it's from the San Francisco Mint with the S mark, it can be worth a bit more. Uncirculated examples can fetch anywhere from $1 to $5, depending on their condition and rarity. For collectors, the most valuable 1992 pennies are those with errors or unique characteristics. While the 1992 penny is not particularly rare or valuable in itself, looking out for minting errors or special varieties can make your coin collection more exciting. If you're lucky enough to have a 1992 penny you want to keep in pristine condition, here are a few tips. Always handle coins with care. Ideally, use gloves to prevent oils from your fingers from transferring to the coin. Store your pennies in a cool, dry place and consider using coin holders or holders to keep them safe from wear and tear. 1969 1 cent. The 1969 1 cent coin, often referred to as the 1969 penny, this coin is a classic example of U.S. currency that has captured the interest of collectors for decades. But what makes this penny special? Let's break it down. First off, let's talk about its basic details. The 1969 penny features the iconic Lincoln design by Victor David Brenner. On the obverse or front, you'll see a profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States. On the reverse or back is the familiar image of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. The 1969 penny was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Here's where things start to get interesting. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced regular circulation coins, but the San Francisco mint struck proof coins, which are usually more pristine and intended for collectors. Now, let's talk about the variations and what might make your 1969 penny worth more than its face value. The most notable of these is the 1969 S double die obverse. This rare variety occurs when the coin's die used to strike the coin has a doubling effect, causing the inscriptions on the obverse to appear doubled. Look for doubling on the letters of "In God We Trust, Liberty" in the date. The 1969 S double die is highly sought after by collectors and can be worth a significant amount. In fact, depending on its condition and grading, this coin can fetch anywhere from a few $100s to over $100,000. The regular 1969 pennies, those not featuring the double die, are still interesting but much less valuable. A typical 1969 penny in good condition is worth just a few cents. However, mint state or uncirculated versions might fetch a bit more, usually between $0.50 and $2.50. If you're checking your change or your coin collection for this penny, remember that condition plays a huge role in its value. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Lastly, let's touch on the historical context of the 1969 penny. This was a year of significant historical events: the Apollo 11 moon landing, the Woodstock Music Festival, and political turbulence. It's always fun to think about the history and events that were happening when these coins were minted. 1973 1 cent. The 1973 1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln penny, was minted in the United States during a period of change in the country's economic and political landscape. But what makes this coin special? Let's break it down. The 1970s were a time of transition in the U.S. marked by various significant events, including the end of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. The economy was also experiencing inflation, which had an impact on coinage and currency. The 1973 penny is part of the Lincoln Cent series, which began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse features Lincoln's profile, while the reverse showcases the iconic Lincoln Memorial. On the obverse of the 1973 penny, you'll see Lincoln's bust facing right, with the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." The reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial with the words 1 cent and United States of America. This design remained largely unchanged from 1959 to 2008. In 1973, the U.S. Mint produced over 3.7 billion pennies, making it a common year for this coin. It was minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with the Denver version featuring a D mint mark. Now let's talk about the value. The 1973 1 cent coin is generally not considered rare or highly valuable in everyday transactions. Most are worth their face value 1 cent. However, if you're a collector, certain factors can affect its value. For example, coins in mint state condition or with specific errors can be worth more. Some 1973 pennies might have minor errors or variations that could make them more valuable to collectors. For instance, look out for doubling or misprints. Additionally, coins that have been well preserved or are in uncirculated condition could fetch a premium price. To sum it up, while the 1973 1 cent coin is not particularly rare or valuable in most cases, it's a great piece of American numismatic history. It reflects the design and production practices of its time and serves as a reminder of the era in which it was minted. 1978 1 cent. The 1978 1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln penny. This coin features the iconic image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse or front side, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side. This design has been standard for the penny since 1959, celebrating the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. On the obverse, you'll find a profile of Abraham Lincoln, which was designed by Victor David Brenner. This particular portrait of Lincoln is one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics. On the reverse side, we see the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo. This design was in use from 1959 until 2008, when it was replaced by the Union Shield design. The memorial represents Lincoln's legacy and has become a cherished symbol on the penny. Now let's talk about the value of the 1978 penny. For most collectors, this penny is considered a common coin. In terms of its numismatic value, a typical 1978 penny in average circulated condition is worth just its face value of 1 cent. However, the value can vary depending on the condition of the coin. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state. For a 1978 penny, here's what you might expect. Circulated condition, these coins usually don't command much above face value. You might be looking at around 1 to 2 cents depending on the market. In circulated condition, if you have a penny that's in mint condition without any wear and tear, it could be worth 5 to 10 cents or more. Proof coin special proof versions, which are struck with more care and usually have a mirror-like finish, might fetch a higher price, but not significantly. They might go for around 25 to 50 cents or more if they're in pristine condition. Keep in mind that market conditions can fluctuate, so it's always a good idea to check recent sales data if you're looking to buy or sell. To sum up, the 1978 1-cent coin is a great example of American numismatic history. While it's not particularly rare or valuable in the grand scheme of things, it's a nice piece to have in your collection, especially if you're interested in the history of American coinage. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about other coins, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Also, drop a comment below if you have any questions or if there's a specific coin you'd like us to cover.